everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. Today is Sunday, July 5th, 2020. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jim Barrows. How are you, Jim?
Hello. Doing good. How about yourself?
All
things considered.
I'm always, if I'm doing bad, I'm doing bad, but the show's important, so I'm going to put a good face on it, take some calls, and have some fun. Nothing for anybody to worry about, by the way, when I say I'm doing bad.
Just semi-normal life stuff that happens.
Yeah. So as a reminder, we are live coming to you from Austin, Texas. The Atheist Community of Austin's Free Thought Library building is still closed. And Austin, as you know, had an interesting week because, the governor of Texas, who I've called out before, for potentially opening Texas a little too early and being a little flip with, we don't have to worry about this coronavirus thing, has now reversed everything, realized that, with Texas posting record new numbers and Florida posting record new numbers and people just generally being stupid and encouraged by their governor and government to not bother wearing masks. We haven't even got out of the first phase and things have been amped up. And so he used the emergency address system to let everyone in Texas know that masks are now required in the state.
Yeah. But, Matt, we have flattened the curve. It's just now vertical.
Yes, it is definitely approaching vertical.
Florida, I noticed MSNBC announced about 4 hours ago that Florida in the last 2 days, or is it 3 days, 40,000 new cases.
Yeah.
In Florida alone.
It's really scary. I mean, in Austin, we're still on. I mean, the mayor of Austin's put us on quarantine until at least August 15th. And we're not going to be worried about opening up the ACA building for a long time. The show's working fine this way. We have an amazing crew, which I guess we could take a moment to show the crew cam of all the people who are working behind the scenes there, including the crew kitty, to make yourselves a show that you can enjoy. For anybody who's watching us live on YouTube today, we're not doing super chats and stuff like that. We have the donate link up at the top above the chat. 100% of those donations go directly to the ACA and help support the mission of both the Atheist Experience, other programs that we have, and renovations that we're going to need to do to the library, which I just found out we're going to have to replace a bunch of windows because the burglar alarm went off today with a message saying, a broken window sensor went off. And so, we weren't burglarized. It's fine. It's just an old window that I think in the heat made a ting and set it off, but I had to go up and check it.
Well, it's not just the windows we might have to replace.
Yeah.
We've got a wall that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, there's a lot of little issues and appreciate it. But in addition to the donation, it's up the top there. There's also merchandise that you can check out. And you can go to bit.ly/AEN merch, and there's coffee cups and t-shirts and sweatshirts and stickers and all that stuff. In addition to that, you can also get a membership to the Atheist Experience YouTube channel. And that's there. For anybody who maybe you can support us on Patreon, but if you didn't like Patreon, you wanted to try it a different way or whatever else, there's the support link there. To call into the show today, the number's 512-991-9242. And I'm sorry that that's not toll free around the world, but you can go to tiny.cc/callaxp, and that will get you into the call. Oh, wow. I've got hiccups all of a sudden.
Uh-oh.
Hey, live TV. That'll get you into the call-in studio stuff, and we've got like a handful of calls sitting here waiting. I don't know if you've looked them over, if you had anybody in particular that you thought you might want to start with.
Well, I thought caller number one there looks.
I kind of knew you were going to do that, and I was going to go in a slightly different direction, but I think we lost my caller who was calling in to ask me why I'm atheist and not agnostic. But
I was thinking that one too, but I didn't see him when I was looking at him. But we've answered that one so many times that we could probably find 10 different recordings of you.
Probably. Plus, I've got a video of it on my Atheist Debates thing. But we have Emyn in Ohio who wants to tell us how the Monty Hall problem proves there's almost certainly no God. How you doing, Emyn?
I'm good. Thank you for taking my call, Matt, Jim.
Hello. So, could you start with explaining what the Monty Hall problem is for those people who don't know?
Maybe if I set up a hypothesis, though, this might go a little bit better, but I'll do it if that's what you think I'd do best. I'll do it that way. So the Monty Hall problem is the game show from the past, and the host would show you 3 doors, A, B, or C, and he would ask you to, there'd be a prize behind one of them, and then I think there were goats behind the other 2. And he would ask you to pick a door. And so you'd say, well, I don't know, I got a 1 in 3 shot here. I'll go with door A. I've always liked the letter A, and my wife's middle initial is A, so let's go with A. And the host would say, oh, really, A? Well, let me show you what's behind door B. So he'd open door B, and you'd find out that there's a goat there. And so then you're going, oh, well, cool. So then the host would ask you a question, and he would ask you, do you want to change your vote now? Do you want to switch from door A to door C? And you're thinking, well, no, I don't want to switch my vote. I had a 1 in 3 shot before, and now it's 50-50. So my chances have improved, you know, and I've always loved the letter A, and my wife is never wrong, so I'll stick with A. And this is intuitively what you should be doing. Is it feels like your chances have increased, but the truth of the matter is that your chances have not increased at all. And what you're seeing here is a false choice between it's either A or it's C, but really is it A or is it B or C? And so the chance you're correct remains at 1/3 chance, and the chance that you're wrong is 2/3 C. So you really should be absolutely switching your vote at this point.
Right.
Sure.
And this is a problem that they've gotten wrong a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, anybody can go. You can go to Wikipedia and look this up. You can find YouTube videos that describe this. I remember hearing about it, you know, when I was much, much younger. It was Marilyn Vos Savant or whatever had written an article about it, and people couldn't believe that, you know, that you should switch and all this other stuff. There's a number of ways to describe it. What I want to know is, what the hell does this have to do with a God belief?
That's a great question. So I think this comes up a lot when people come and call in and ask you about like Pascal's wager, and I'm going to talk specifically about a call that happened with you guys back in, say, September. But people consider it to be, and I'm just because I want to be crystal clear, I'm going to say, did God create the universe, right? So people think it's either God created the universe or it's not God created the universe. And like literally in September, you had a caller with.
That's true.
Yeah.
Either God created the universe or God didn't create the universe. That's true. That's just a straight dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is true. And but people like they see it as 50-50, but it's not 50-50, is it? I mean, you obviously knew this. You talked about this in that phone call that I'm referencing from a long time ago. It's more akin to, is it yellow or is it not yellow, right? There's yellow things, and then there's red and orange things, and then there's all the other things that, like, you know, yellow doesn't even make sense.
This is still nothing like the Monty Hall problem.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Like I said, you threw me off by having me do that part first, so let me try to get there. So I'd like to explore what is the chance that God created the universe, and what I'm going to do is assume a high chance that a God created the universe and a very low chance that not God created the universe, okay? So just because we're talking on a phone call here, I'm going to keep the numbers kind of simple, but they're obviously more complex than this. But out of 1 out of 100 chance, let's give 1 out of 100 is the not God side. We're assuming a very low chance something not God created the universe. This is where you'd find your universe creating pixies and stuff. And let's assume a very high chance a God created the universe. So the 99 chance out of 100 a God created the universe. And just to be fair, because obviously you and I don't have a horse in this race, we'll give 1 chance to every God we can think of. The God of the Bible, the God of the Quran, the God of the Torah, you know, Norse gods, Native Americans gods, Tom Cruise's gods.
No, pause. You just completely screwed this up to where it's completely untenable. You cannot have 99 options that a God created the universe and then assign 1 to each individual God, because only one of those can actually be correct. So you only have a 1 in 98 now, given your example. You've already screwed up the math and options on this.
I'm not following what you mean there. No, I'm saying just artificially we're giving those chances.
Stop.
Yep.
And listen. You started by saying that there's only a 1% chance that no God did it, and there's a 99% chance that some God did it, and you're going to assign each of those 99 options to 99 different gods. But the fact is, only one of those 99 could actually be correct. So your example is 1% that a specific God did it, and 98%, sorry, is that some other God didn't do it, and the 100%, the last option, is that no God did it, which is identical to the others. You
Right.
inverted everything by assigning everything to a God.
Well, again, so this is just because we went backwards. But now, if we see that we can relate this to the Monty Hall, we basically have 3 doors.
It's not. Go ahead, Jim.
So there's a couple of problems that I'm having. One, you're assigning odds, but part of the Monty Hall problem, in fact, the part that makes it significant or significantly interesting, is that the host is opening a door he knows has the goat behind it. Right?
Yes.
So in your example, where is the host opening a door he knows opens to, and I don't know if you're trying to say not a God or a God, to the wrong door.
Yeah.
Where does that happen?
Absolutely. So again, we're just assuming a high chance of a God did it to try to assume the opposite of what we believe, that no God.
So,
You're not. Because when you list off 99 gods and assign them to each of the 1% probability that each of those gods have, you're overlooking the fact that only one of those gods is going to be the right one. So now you have a 1% chance that a God did this.
Correct. And that's where I'm going with this. I don't believe that a God did it. I'm saying when you choose.
Yeah, it's not the Monty Python.
A God door.
No, stop, Em. You stop. You've completely fucked the math. You don't get to start by saying you're going to give an incredibly low percentage to not God, an incredibly high percentage to God, when in truth, you are giving an incredibly high percentage, 99% to not the actual God, and a 1% to the actual God. So you, through your example, have already fucked up the math and inverted it so that there's now a 1% chance that a God did it.
Yeah, and you're making assumptions.
And that's what
I don't know where the assumptions are coming from.
The assumption is just basically like, let's try to prove the opposite. Let me try to prove my point that it's probably not God by assuming the opposite. That's what you do in mathematical.
You're not.
Stop. You are not assuming the opposite. You set up a scenario where there's a 99% chance that the 1% chance that a God did it, and a 99% chance that that God didn't do it. That's the scenario you've set up.
And that's what I'm saying is what happens when you do that. Even when you assign an incredibly high probability that it is a God, when you go to choose a door, all of that gets assigned over into the not God side now. So no matter what God you choose, all of that other chance is now hidden behind the other door.
No. So, because your example of the Monty Hall problem doesn't work here. Because what you would have, and let's assume there are 99 gods, and then that 100th is the other door, is you're going to open the door on one of the gods you know didn't do it, or one of the doors that the gods didn't do it. The problem is that if you're saying that's not, you're not reducing the odds by the same amount as you do with just a third, and you still have 99 other doors that need to be opened in order to reduce the odds anywhere near what you're talking about.
Not you, but a person. I'm sorry. You as a person, when you go to choose, when I say, hey, and I'm not saying it's 99 other gods, I'm assuming all the other gods are in there, right? So whatever one you want, but just trying to keep the math easy, right? When you go, okay, I pick, it's Jesus.
I'm done.
So here's the problem. Again, who is Monty Hall? Who's the host opening doors?
The person themselves. The person who.
No, that's not the way. That's not the way it works. No.
Then they realistically are closing all those other doors.
No.
Stop. I've muted you now. Please go think about this. Maybe consider putting together an email and sending it to somebody, because this is literally the second stupidest fucking thing that I've heard today. And the most stupid thing that I've heard today is that slavery wasn't that bad because slaves could run away. So you're at a high water mark here. You say we're going to give a low percentage chance to not God and 99% to God. And then you fill in all those with gods, except for one of them, with gods that didn't do it. You also don't understand the Monty Hall problem. It's essential that the person opening the door knows that they're opening to reveal a goat. And so of the 99 gods, 98 of them are goats. You have managed to trick yourself into thinking you've discovered something that disproves God, which, by the way, if you began with a probability of 1% that no God created the universe and a 99% chance that God did do it, there is literally no fucking way in mathematics and in the world that you can get to a point where you can, according to what your call screener said, demonstrate through the Monty Hall problem that there's almost certainly no God if you began with a 99% probability of a God. Right. You have managed to work yourself into so much confusion that this is now a waste of time.
Yeah, and the other problem that you have is that there are two people involved in the Monty Hall problem. The first one is Monty Hall, the guy opening the door. The second one is the guesser. So you're having the guesser and the Monty Hall person, it sounds like to me, playing the same role, and you can't do that. Someone needs to open the door. So who's opening the door? To reduce the odds and to play the game. And you don't have that. So yeah, I'm not sure that doesn't fly with me. And the assigning of percentages, that's really, really iffy for me as well.
It is, and again, the idea is meant to be that I'm going to assume the thing I don't believe is true is true.
Well, that doesn't give
it the greatest chance of being possible.
But that's not how you even come close to playing the Monty Hall game.
Are false.
You didn't do that. You didn't give it the high chance. You have one God that could be it, and 98 gods that can't be it, and one that's a non-God. You are incredibly confused. We're going to move on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We have, is it Jeury in New York? You're on with Jim and Matt. How are you?
Hello, how you doing, guys? This is Jeury. This is my first time calling to a TV show.
Hi, Jeury.
So I'm calling right now. Yeah. So my question is, I'm an atheist too, and sometimes I enter the conversation with some people about whether there's a God or not. But I just leave the conversation just when I give up, when there's no point in to keep talking something that's just going to believe what you want to believe. When they bring up the ad hoc fallacy, okay, that's not true, but this, then but this, then but this, but this. I wonder, how do you guys deal with that? Because to me, if somebody around my age, I'm 24, okay, I enter the conversation. But if somebody that's around 50, 40, I say, okay, that's another generation. They're going to die out. No, I don't care. But, yeah.
With patience and with a lot of self-discipline.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We know beyond any doubt that things that we've said on the show have changed people's minds and affected their lives, and that they're grateful for it. So we know this change happens. We also know that the non-religious section of the population is one of the fastest growing segments of religious identity is the nuns, the NONEs. The fact that you're having a conversation that's frustrating and it doesn't seem that the person you're talking to is going to change their mind, that's normal. I mean, that's what we do here all day, every day we're doing a show. It's not the people who call in here aren't, oh, yes, you're right. Thank you. That happens very rarely. And yet we know that it happens. And so sometimes you just got to say, hey, let me go off and think about it, or let's do something else.
And it's also kind of random too, because you may be the final conversation and you may not even know it. It may happen later that evening, the next week, a month later, where something you said starts to resonate, and then they go, yeah, okay, I think that's true now. You may be the first conversation in that process. You may be the last, you may be somewhere in between. But that's kind of what allows me to have the patience that I have in some cases, that I am not going to convince the person in that conversation, but I've been part of the process. If you talk to enough people who've deconverted, that is kind of what happens. That's Matt's story. That's my story. That's a lot of people. Of the first conversation didn't do it. And some people, they can put the last conversation that did it, and some people can't. I can't, for instance, put the last conversation that did it. But that's kind of what you do, is you just have to realize it's part of the process, and it'll either happen or it won't. But if you get angry, you get defensive, you start calling names, it will never happen.
Names.
Yeah. But some atheists do.
There's mistakes that are going to be made. It was pretty typical that if I got into it heated with somebody on Atheist Experience, I'd call them a moron or an idiot. And then I shifted that to saying, okay, moronic or idiotic. That way I'm not going to the person. And then I shifted that as well. And to say, like the last caller, I literally said, this is one of the stupidest things I've heard today. And that's just me being honest. Do I think the caller's stupid? No. I think all of us say and do stupid things all the time. It's not that we have to, every conversation that you have with somebody isn't going to result in change. And if that frustrates you, you should stop and work on something else, because that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, because I remember once I was in college, this Muslim girl, she tried to convert me to her religion, to Muslim. And we had the conversation. And then I was convincing her. She was giving the arguments, and I was like nicely, quietly, I was saying, oh, this is why this is wrong. This is why it doesn't make sense. I almost converted her into an atheist. She got scared. She got like, oh, stay away from me, whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm just listening to you and telling you why I wouldn't be in the religion. I'm not telling you why you should be in mine. I'm just telling you what you think is wrong and why it doesn't make sense. That's all. But she said, at the end of the day, you're right. Everything you're saying makes sense. Your arguments are sound. But I don't want to stop believing in God. It brings me hope, peace, whatever. So I will stop it right here, because I'm scared right now of changing my mind.
So, Jeury, just look for the conversations that you're comfortable with and that seem to be productive, and be willing to move on. If it's not the case, it's more difficult if you're trying to talk with somebody that you care about, like family members and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's much thornier. Much thornier, because you've got all the emotional baggage that goes with being family. So
yeah, and so something off topic. Since your channel is so famous right now, I really love watching you guys. Have you ever thought of making a Spanish version of this, like for Hispanic people that are from different countries of America can call and have somebody talking Spanish to them? Because that's something you're leaving out, I think.
Are you volunteering?
I'm in New York. If I was in Austin, I would definitely sign up. But I'm in New York and college, so I'm busy right now. But I would definitely be in it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're Spanish speaking, and you want to do a show like the AXP, Atheist Experience, then by all means do it. I don't know that we have the resources to do on-the-fly translation and everything else we would need to make it multilingual.
Hang on,
but
somebody just set a caller live, so let me fix that.
Oh, whoops!
I apologize, Jeury. There was a little there, and we had two callers on at the same time, and I didn't want anybody confused.
Right. So, I mean, by all means, do that. I think we can help. Vern is more than happy to talk to you about how to get things set up. And I know I'm throwing Vern under that bus, but I've never known Vern to not be happy to talk about the technical side of what we do.
Hey, Vern, you want to set up 4 more shows for people?
Well, I said talk about it. I didn't say he'd do it. I said he'd talk about it. Didn't say he would actually do anything. But honestly, yeah. If there's
I'm pretty sure that in Texas, Austin, Texas, there are many Spanish speakers that would be willing to do like another hour only for Spanish people. I'm pretty sure that in Texas, there are going to be a lot of people.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a matter of resources. We're all volunteers for nonprofits. So it's hard to, finding the resources to do it, and then finding the Spanish speaking hosts. That's why I asked if you're volunteering. Even if we had everything else,
if I had time, I would do it.
Well,
if I had the time, definitely I would do it.
Only takes a couple hours a week.
Yeah, keep working on your school stuff. Keep doing it volunteer time. You know, you're going to find how involved you want to be in this. And I wish you luck. And by all means, reach out if you need help. And who knows, maybe when you're done, you move to Austin and the ACA develops a show in Espanol. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I can do research in Austin. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Jeury.
good day.
Cheers.
And I want to be clear, Vern will talk. We don't want Vern doing. He's busy enough, but Vern will give you a list and of what he does and that. So, especially for the Spanish stuff. So not throwing him under the do bus.
Although it didn't take long for there to be an interesting picture in the chat. But yeah. Sure. So let's see. Let's do the one that I almost took at the beginning because evidently they're back. We have Oscar in Indiana wants to know why I'm an atheist and not an agnostic.
Oh.
Well, it goes like this. I'm an agnostic.
Congrats.
I call a black station. Yes, I called a black station one day, and I guess the guy who's hosting was a Christian. He asked me, "Are you a black man?" I said, "Yes, I'm a black man." He said, "Are you a Christian?" I said, "No, I'm an agnostic." And he said, "Well, how would you, a black man, end up being agnostic?" And I went through the process, what I went through at the age and the kind of stuff. So what I'd like to ask Matt is, at what age were you when you went through what you went through, and what mental process did you use to get you where you were? And if it's not taboo. And the other question I would ask Matt is, what did you start out as? Did you start out as a Baptist, as a Methodist, Presbyterian?
So Oscar, my story is out there many times, covered in the 15 years that I've hosted this show and other stuff. The short version is I was a Southern Baptist who walked down the aisle at around the age of 5 to accept Jesus into my heart, was active in the church all the way up until I got out, graduated, went into high school, went into the Navy. At some time during the Navy, I had some questions. I was still a believer, but not particularly practicing. Then around 2000 or so, 2001, while trying to demonstrate that belief in God was justified to my roommate was the goal. I found my way out of religion. That's it. I'm an atheist because I don't believe that there's a God. And if somebody says, "Do you believe?" then the only answers are you're either a theist or a non-theist. Agnostic isn't an answer to the "do you believe" question. It's an answer to the "do you know" question, because knowledge is a subset of belief.
Understand perfectly, and I'm at that stage where I have to say I don't know. But my last point is,
I don't know either.
Watch your show.
Go ahead.
Okay. I watch your show, and it's a very interesting show. But sometimes I watch it because people call in it with the most ridiculous things in the world. But my joy is seeing you put your face in your hand. How in the world did they come up with? Even though you're not trying to be funny, it's funny just watching you react to some of the stuff that's called in.
On that note, Oscar, I'm going to let you go and move on to other calls because I can see what people are calling about, and there's a really good chance that I'll be facepalming soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
All right. So, sorry, I'm going to be a little selfish on this one. Gerard, Connecticut, wants to challenge me on believing as many true things and as few false things as possible. Sorry for the hiccups.
Yes, hi. How are you guys doing?
I don't know yet.
Okay. So yeah, there was actually two avenues I wanted to go down. One was that with the with your motto or phrase, whatever you call it.
Sure.
And similarly was, I think, something you said a few weeks ago on the show when you were clarifying your position about the not believing or believing no gods exist. I don't know if you have any preference for which one.
You either need to ask a question or make some sort of statement, because the thing I'm talking about when I say I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, to me, I don't even know how anybody could challenge that. I mean, not only am I basically cribbing Hume there, but essentially all I'm saying is I want my internal model of reality to be as accurate as possible. How could that possibly be a problem?
Okay, so I'll try to articulate what I believe here. The part about that motto that I'm not sure I agree with is the believe as few false things as possible. Not because you want to believe false things, but in the sense that I don't feel restricted by believing potentially false things, I guess.
So let's say you believe 100 things.
Yeah.
Let's say you believe 100 things. What percentage of them would you like to be true?
All of them.
Okay, so you would also like to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. As few false things as possible would mean to believe nothing false. What percentage of false beliefs are you comfortable with, and why?
Well, I don't think about when I think about believing proposition. I don't think about it as like how many things I want to believe. I think more in terms of what do I believe that can potentially give me more insight into understanding things. So, for example, the reason, like one of the things I think is, you have people studying like string theory and these quote unquote theories. I mean, whether or not they're real scientific theory or not is up to debate. But you have people that do believe these things.
Okay,
and they could be false. There's not.
Why wouldn't you reserve? Why wouldn't you wait and believe something when there's sufficient evidence for it? Why would you be okay with believing something that's not true?
Okay, so this is actually similar to another thing I wanted to bring up, which is
instead of switching to another thing, can we address this thing? You called in to challenge me on this.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
No, it's not what you're doing.
That's what I'm doing.
No, it's not. You called in to challenge me on this. I've asked questions. Are you going to answer those questions?
Yeah. So can you ask the question one more time so I can?
Sure. What would you be? What false thing would you be okay believing?
I don't think that was the most recent question.
Okay.
You asked.
I'm sorry that you haven't answered enough of these. I asked you what if you believed 100 things, how many of them would you like to be true? And you said 100. So that seems that you agree with me. And then you say no, you don't agree with me because you're not bothered by believing false things. And I wanted to know how many false things you would believe. And you didn't. No, not fucking potentially false. False. How many false things? Did my original statement say how many true things and potentially false things?
No, but.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So how many false things would you like to believe?
I wouldn't.
Me neither. Anything
I wouldn't want to believe as few, or I would want to believe as few, but I think that holds back from believing potentially false things in the service of trying to get to greater truths.
Why would you believe anything that could potentially be false? Why wouldn't your position be, hey, let's explore? Would you let me finish the fucking question?
And again,
I'm going to mute you so that I can finish my fucking question. The question is, why would you willingly believe something is true while knowing it's potentially false? That is a conflict. Why wouldn't you just say, let me explore this and find out whether or not it is true or whether or not it is false? Now I'll unmute.
Because we don't have total control over what we believe.
You're either convinced or you're not, right?
Yes.
So if you're convinced of something, that means you think it's true, right?
Yes.
So how could you possibly be convinced of something, think it's true, and also identify that it is possibly false? That is cognitive dissonance, and it is an antithesis of clear, rational thinking.
We don't choose what we believe.
Okay,
You can believe something and not be rationally justified in it.
Yeah. So
Can
let me
you convince yourself? Can you convince yourself that something is both true and possibly false?
Yes.
Okay, then
so
you don't have a sound epistemology. Go ahead, Jim.
So Gerard, let me ask you this question, because I think you might be missing something, and I'm not sure what it is. So let's assume that I have the proposition the sky is blue. What are the possible positions you could take on that proposition?
It's either blue or not blue.
The sky is blue. That's the proposition. What are the possible positions you can take on that proposition?
You can. I think you're getting at that you can believe that it's blue or not believe that it's blue.
Well, so there are three positions you can take, and then there's my personal favorite, the fourth position, but that's just me. But there are three actual positions you can take. You can accept it as true, you can accept that it's false, or you can say I don't know. And I think what you're trying to do is that you either don't know or have forgotten that third position of I don't know exists. So when a scientist is exploring string theory, to use one of your examples, it's not that he believes that string theory is true, it's that he doesn't know that it's true, and so he's exploring it. Does that make sense?
Well, those are mutually exclusive. Even, I'm sure that...
Well, so when you say mutually exclusive, what do you mean?
String theorists, believe... What I mean is, I believe, or I think some string theorists believe that string theory is true, but it's not because...
So again, that's not my point. My point is, do you understand that there are three positions you can take? Accept it as true.
Well, then
it's false, and I don't know. But I don't know is the third one that I think you're missing. And I don't know on a proposition is absolutely okay, and it's a position you can take. So if you're trying to prove something is true or false, you can start. Pardon?
That doesn't say whether you believe or don't believe it, though.
Exactly. You don't know.
You still believe or not believe.
Right, and that's my point. So you don't have to believe something in false things until they're proven true. You can simply say, I don't know, until you have proof for either side of the proposition.
But you've already acknowledged that you think you can believe something is true and believe it's possibly false. And that is definitionally.
Right. And that's kind of what led me think that you didn't know about that middle position of I don't know. And my personal favorite, the I don't care, but that's just me. But those are the three positions you can take.
But I want to get back to the idea that you can believe something. You can believe something is true or potentially false.
Can you believe something is red? Can you believe something is red and believe that it's potentially blue? That's what I thought. Think on it some more. We're going to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes people forget that third position, that the default position should be I don't know.
Yeah, it's confusing because you're not always faced with look at the God thing. Mm-hmm. It's simply a fact. Either God exists or it doesn't exist. Those are the only two options.
Right.
What you believe, you can believe or reject either of those. What you can't do is accept both of those and claim that it's sound.
Right. And it also goes back to why trials are only trying to prove guilt or not guilt or innocence, right? It's the same idea. We'd have to have a separate trial to prove innocence as opposed to proving just guilt. Right?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to take care of somebody in chat, actually.
Uh-oh. So yeah, and that's and then there's my favorite fourth position, which is I don't care. But people get hooked on this, I think, a lot, and thinking that while a proposition like the sky is blue, that proposition is either true or false. The position you can adopt on it is one of those three. I don't know.
I'm not convinced, and I am or am not convinced of the opposite, or don't have a position.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that's the thing that people need to realize is that, and sometimes the best position to take is the I don't know position, and wait for evidence to come in.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I get it. People would like to say, oh, here's a group of people who believe God exists. Here's a group of people who don't believe God exists. I'd like to stay in the middle, except that you can't. You are either convinced that God exists or you're not convinced. Whether or not you're also convinced that gods are fictional or whatever else is separate thing. Anyway, who are we going? You have a preference where to go next, or just take whoever?
I don't really have much of a preference.
Cool. So we'll go with Daniel in California, saying that people aren't presenting the Bible to us correctly.
Oh.
What's up, Matt? What's up, Jim?
Hey, how's it going, Daniel?
Hey, I'm all right, man. I got to get a picture with you, Matt, before I start. I got to get a picture with you, and I want to walk into the church with me and you on the picture on my T-shirts to just see everybody's expression. But I was calling in because I just want to let you bring it to your attention that people call in and they're basically how can I say it? The Christianity thing is a lot. It's like an agenda, and they get taught things. They don't investigate what the Bible's about. The Bible's because I used to go to church too, and the Bible's more of a historical book, and it's not for everyone. I mean, there's verses in the Bible that tells you that. And I was wondering if you knew anything about that.
Well, so you say it's historical. Is it absolutely historically correct in your opinion?
Well, from what I've been trying to study myself, and from what I read, the Christianity thing for sure is false, because I could give people scripture. I've done this a couple of days.
So that's different from being historically accurate. Do you think the Bible is absolutely historically accurate?
Yeah, like, do you think that the earth was created by a god and Adam and Eve, or Adam was created out of dirt and then Eve was created out of rib? Do you think that's historically accurate?
Yeah, well, put it this way. Like I said, I don't think nobody has the full truth. So me personally, I would say, as far as that goes, I don't know, but
what about the whole Exodus section? Because both Israeli and Egyptian archaeologists have both agreed that Jewish people were not in Egypt at anywhere near the numbers claimed, if at all, at any of the times that could have happened in Egyptian history. Not only that, but both Israeli and Egyptian archaeologists have agreed that there's no evidence of Jewish people in Egypt at any of the times that were there. Not only that, but we have more evidence of Alexander the Great, who was earlier, as far as I know, going from Greece all the way up through India, than we do, which is a really, much larger distance than the distance from Egypt to Israel, which is a 4-day walk. Not only is it a 4-day walk, it gets worse than that for the historical proof of the Exodus. It's across the thinnest section going from Africa to the Middle East. That's where we put the Suez Canal. They had to cross that small body of land that we put a canal across to get there. There's no evidence of Jewish people making that 4, 5, 7 day, whatever it is, check it on Google Maps, walk, much less spending 40 years in that small amount of desert. So when you say historically accurate, what do you mean?
Meanwhile, we know enough about we know enough about the divergence of life and life's common ancestry to know that any story that suggests all human beings go back to two individuals at a specific time frame that were created by God, that's just not true. We have an unbroken line.
Yeah, I don't know about about what he was talking about. Like I haven't studied that part. I'm being honest. And as far as those two being the first human beings, Adam and Eve, of course, even the Bible says there was people before them.
No, it doesn't. Whoa. If you're going to call and tell me that the Bible is a history book, where in the Bible does it say there were people before Adam and Eve? Because That's news. Prove this to me right now.
Yeah, you know what? Oh man, I don't even, because I'm driving and I'm calling you, and I thought I was going to get through, but because it says when remember when they had their children, the kids left to another city to where there were already people there.
That doesn't mean that there were people before Adam and Eve. The apologetics there are that those were also cities founded by the children of Adam and Eve. If the Bible says that Adam and Eve were the first two people, then they were the first two people.
And yeah, see, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I don't do like other callers to start making stuff up. But I remember in Genesis when it talks about when he created everything, and he says about creating the living creatures, and then Adam and Eve come later on.
Yes.
And yeah, and like I said, the whole point I was calling for, Matt, was because people call in and they give you a Christianity agenda that has nothing to do with the Bible.
No.
And that's the thing that
is that you called in to say people aren't presenting the Bible correctly, which is strange because I've actually I've actually read it multiple times, so it doesn't matter to me how somebody represents the Bible. But what I don't do is let people represent the Bible inaccurately, which is what you just did when you suggested the Bible says there were people before Adam and Eve. That's not necessarily the case. What difference it make if a Christian calls up and represents the Bible poorly if I correct it?
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't have the scripture with me. Like I said, I've read. Like I said, I was driving. Honestly, didn't think I was going to get through. Then that's why I wasn't even prepared. I was just gave it a shot. But it's just like many scriptures. Like I said, that they, you know, how they say God loves everyone, and that was my whole point of calling. How they try to push that.
How do you know your interpretation of the Bible is correct and everybody else's is correct? Because I could probably find not just one person, but probably 500, 600, 700 denominations who disagree with whatever your interpretation is. So how are you determining you're correct?
Because the Bible, like I could show them, and I'm talking with different, not, of course, not all in the world, but I'm talking with different denominations. And I show them verses that they don't even speak about. Like, for example, where God hates. For example, you know, like God hates people, God created evil, God created good, God created light and darkness. All that's in the Bible, and it was for the original Jews. The Bible was for the original Jews. It was for the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's presented in the book
the Old Testament. Yes, the Old Testament.
Yeah, and the New Testament, because the New Testament tells you.
But now, when you say you talk to other denominations, are you talking to apologists from those denominations, or are you talking to lay people and just people who go to church every day?
No, I've talked to the elders of the Mormon Church. I've talked to Jehovah's Witness. I went to Jehovah's Witness, the Hall.
But again, who are you talking to? Because when I was a standard Catholic and you'd come and talk to me about this stuff, I wouldn't have known it. But I would expect that if you had gone and talked to a bishop or a priest or someone who does apologetics for the Catholic Church, that they would know it. So that's why I'm asking, what is the level of education the person you're talking to is? Because you've talked to us for 10 minutes now, and we've already blasted you with things that you weren't aware of and didn't know in the first 10, 20 minutes of this conversation.
And the other part of this is that it doesn't matter. If somebody comes to me and tells me that they believe that the Bible says the moon is made of green cheese and that we will all retire there one day, I have to address the claim they've made and what evidence they have for it. I can point out to them, say, okay, show me where the Bible says that. But even if they showed me something that they are interpreting that way, I have no reason to give a fuck what the Bible says in the first place. And so if you're calling in to say, oh, some people aren't presenting the Bible correctly, well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't care, because if let's say somebody absolutely presented the Bible correctly, that's separate from whether or not there's a good reason to believe in God and whether or not the Bible's true. And if they present it incorrectly, that's still separate. So it doesn't matter if you think that somebody is presenting the Bible wrong, unless you're wanting to call up and present the Bible correctly, in which case, okay, you can have that argument, but I can have that argument with anybody.
Right. I'm just saying, like I said, the whole reason I called is because they call and they say, oh, God, it's just love, and nothing else. Yeah. And like I said, if like you, Matt, if you don't believe the Bible, then that, of course we can't have an argument because you won't believe it. So my whole point, like I said again, is just that people need to stop calling in and saying God loves everybody, because the Bible doesn't say that. Like I said, there's verses very clearly that even in their Bible, they could read for themselves. And like I said, Romans 9:13, and if they can start from Romans 9:11, they can read the whole chapter of Romans.
Yeah, and there are people who will then right. And here's my problem with what you're saying and what everyone else says. Every time I get into a Bible fight with any Christian, and I see Christians doing Bible fights, it comes into who can have the most quotes. And you know what?
You have the most what?
I don't care. Whoever has the most quotes wins. It turns into a giant Bible quote off. And you know what? I don't care about quote offs.
Yeah.
I want to know, is it true? Because it's no different than people who are debating Spider-Man and using the Spider comics to as quotes.
Yep.
It's absolutely no different, and it makes just as much sense and has just as much to do with reality as Spider-Man does. So I don't care.
Yeah,
and I don't know why you care.
Because I get tired of the Christians that call in and they always push the same little agenda, the love, and they don't show the other.
So what?
I'm going based off what they supposed to believe. You know what I mean?
And they will tell you that they will quote back and tell you they prayed over it.
But also, I don't think you're accurate. I don't have a memory of very many Christians calling in to this show to just say the Bible's all about love, love, love. I don't hear that. When does this happen?
Yeah. Well, I've watched I watched quite a few of your shows. They tell you, Jesus loves you. When you've asked them, how do you tell God to tell me something that convinced me, and they go, He loves you. You know what I mean? They throw the same thing at everybody. It's the same.
But I don't think that is.
Though.
I don't take that as somebody calling to say that the Bible and God is just about love. By the way, my favorite debate of all time is Matt Slick versus Jesse Morrell on free will and election, I think was the one, because there you have two Christians who have two different notions about salvation, the most important thing that they could be talking about. And they're now debating each other. And what one of them would do is list a whole bunch of verses that support his case. And the other one would list a whole bunch of verses that support his case. And neither would ever point out where the other actually got it wrong. And so that's all anybody needs to know about the Bible, is that two sincere believing Christians can read the Bible and have a serious debate about the path to salvation and cite as a bunch of verses to show that each one of them is right. That's how fucked up the Bible is.
Yeah. And that's without even talking about how historically inaccurate it is.
Yeah.
And that goes back, like I said, still to how you said, some people study, some people don't even, and like I said, it's about, I don't even know how to say it, but like I said, if you guys don't believe the Bible, I mean, like I said, it's fine. So we can't really have, what do you call it? I'm not trying to have a debate with you at all, but I'm just saying people can have a debate, because it's like if I believe a certain book and somebody else doesn't, they can tell whatever they want. It's not, you can't debate it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, you can attempt.
The Bible's either true in what it claims or it's not, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if the Bible claims something and it's either true or it's not, then either we have a way to find out that it's true or not, or we don't have a way to find out, right?
Yes.
So if we have a way to find out whether or not it's true, then we can have that discussion. But if we don't have any way to find out whether or not it's true, then why would anybody believe that it is true? How could you possibly say, I believe the Bible's true, but I don't have any evidence or argument to support that? That is, by definition, irrational thinking.
No, I understand what you're saying 100%. But I'm saying when people get stuck, I'm not saying you guys would how people say that I believe the Bible no matter what, and you tell them and show them different and show them some facts, they still get stuck on it. That's what I don't like. You know what I mean? When there's facts, when there's about a certain thing, and people still get stuck on the same thing, regardless.
Just like you are right now about the historical accuracy of the Bible.
No, I told you I didn't know. I told you I didn't know about what you had told me about the travel and all that.
You're right. There's a lot. That's just the biggest one.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even started talking about the inaccuracy of Noah's flood.
So how? Just for curiosity, Daniel, if on a scale of 1 to 100, how accurate do you think the Bible is?
With me, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I would say 75%, because it's been tampered with. I know it's been tampered with. We all know that. Okay.
So how do we tell which parts are true and which parts aren't?
That's the thing. That's
why I asked.
Right.
Study.
Yeah, you have to go outside the Bible to prove it. You have to go outside the Bible to prove it.
That's only logical. That's only
Right.
logical. That's the only logical thing to do. That's what I'm saying. So go ahead.
Right. So look outside the Bible for evidence, and then only accept those things that are true. And what you're going to find is that the supernatural claims of the Bible cannot be proven. And so your default position should be, I don't know.
And that's what I do. Like when I don't know something, I will tell you. Like not you guys, or anybody.
But you believe the Bible is true.
Like I said, most of it, yes. Like I said, not all of it, because I know it's been tampered with. Just historical. I mean, the history will tell you.
Do you think God create? Do you think God created the universe? Is that part true?
Yes, I believe that part.
Well, what evidence do you have for that?
Okay, me personally, I don't have evidence.
Then you don't care about truth, and I don't know why I should care about talking to you. Because if you're saying that you believe something and that you cannot demonstrate it, then you are by definition unreasonable, and you don't care whether or not your beliefs are true.
Yeah. No, Matt. Who could demonstrate to us how life started?
Nobody does. But the time to believe that a God did it is after there's evidence for it. You don't get to say, "Oh, well, you can't prove me wrong." That's the fallacy.
I just say it like this. Look, I just say it like this, Matt. I say that I believe a God created it, or God created it, because humanly, I don't think it could be possible just to happen.
I don't care.
That's where
basically you just said you believe God did it because you can't think of any other way. Well, tough shit. That's not reasonable. That's not rational. That's not evidence, and that's not an argument. That's just your opinion, dude.
Right.
But Daniel, can I back up to something?
Yes.
Can I back you up real quick to the 75% true bit? So let me, and the fact, and you said that you know that it's been tampered with. Those two things are correct?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
So essentially what you're telling me is that if you're sitting on a jury and a prosecuting attorney says this witness to the murder is 75% correct and has been tampered with, and then wants you to accept that evidence as true to convict somebody of murder, would you?
Of course not. Of course not. I already know what it was.
So why are you convicting God of existing based on the same evidence?
I'm not convicting him. Like I said, it's just certain things that how could I say it? Man, you guys caught me driving. I'm trying to pull over.
So this is the problem, though, is that you're saying that God exists based on evidence on a testimony that you think is 75% correct and has been tampered with, but you won't convict someone of murder based on that, but you will convict a God of existing.
Yeah.
Why the difference in standards for the more important question of whether or not a God exists?
I don't know, because like I said, it has some truth. You know what I mean? And
so does the witness testimony for murder.
Yeah.
75%, and he's been tampered with.
No, and we know that. Like I said, I understand that. We know that. I'm at the point, guys, when I sit down at home, man, because you guys caught me good.
Daniel, have you ever told a lie?
Of course.
Okay, I'm not trying to play Ray Comfort right now, but by your own admission,
I was gonna tell you, you sound like Ray Comfort.
I know that I did this on purpose. By your own admission, you are now
real quick, Matt.
I know, not real quick. I've been sitting here waiting. By your own admission, you are now an untrustworthy source of information, correct?
Right.
And so maybe you don't even believe what you're telling me you believe right now, right? So should I believe you or not? Wouldn't I need evidence?
Of course, you need evidence for everything. You're 100% right. I know
the
that.
The only evidence I have right now is that you're an admitted liar.
Right. But
you've been tampered with.
Yeah. You sound like Ray Comfort. I don't like that guy anyway, but what do you call it?
I like Ray. He's not particular. We're going to move on to some other callers. Yeah. I appreciate it. But yeah, thanks for give us a call back.
Thanks for everything, man. You guys take care.
Yep.
All right, take care.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. It's one of those things. There are people who are like, Matt's in rah mode. The thing is, I get it. I genuinely understand, and I think most of us do, that there are people who are like, it just seems like there's got to be a God, right. Like surely science should have explained all this by now. And the fact that it hasn't means that maybe it can't. And if it can't, then doesn't that mean it's more likely that there's a God? Well, I can't go back in time, but that doesn't mean that I can't come up with reasonable evidence about what has happened in the past. How confident should I be? It should be proportional to the evidence.
Yeah. And I'm always shocked when callers say, I'm calling while I'm driving. I wasn't prepared for this. You're calling us. We can get caught flat-footed because we're sitting here at our desk at home and our reference material is somewhere. Why isn't your reference material right next to you?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I didn't think I was going to get through. I wasn't quite prepared for this. I get it. In that case, move on and call back when you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when we're more prepared than you are when we can do stuff off the top of our heads.
Well, man, that's rough. I want to take this. We've got Alex in Virginia. You're on with Jim and Matt.
Oh God. Hi guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, hot mess, but how are you?
Yeah.
Well, pretty much the same, really.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. I know you guys have had a lot of atheist callers already today, so I just want to get through this quick. I really just had a question for you because I've been watching.
You're the last atheist, by the way. We have nothing but theist callers waiting now.
I'm sorry?
You're going to be the last atheist caller for today. We have nothing but theists calls in the queue to get to. But please, you have a serious issue, and I wanted to get to it. So fill us in.
Okay. All right. So short answer, my father is dying. He's a lifelong Catholic, has been for pretty much his whole life, I guess. I left the church when I was about 13. We've never really seen eye to eye on it. And, we coexist. Despite that, the man still was a father to me. And regardless of my religious or irreligious leanings, he always did the best he could for me.
Yeah.
And I have one thing that's always been kind of a sticking point is that he worried for me. And I have to ask if it's even remotely ethical at this point for me to just say, you know what, Dad, you're right. I can believe in God for a while, and I obviously don't, but just to let him believe that I do. So until he goes, he doesn't have to worry about me. He doesn't have to go out worrying about me. And sorry.
So I'm also a recovering Catholic. I am not out to my parents. I'm also not hiding from them. If they were on any social media, they would know I'm an atheist. And I'm not going to answer your question directly. I'm going to give you my reasoning behind what I'm doing, and let you draw your own conclusions. But the reason I'm not is because it would destroy my parents, especially my mom. And I don't want to do that to them. I don't want to cause them any more distress than I need to. And in conversations we've had, there's no doubt in my mind that there is a way that I can phrase this or have a conversation with them that would not utterly destroy them. And that is not something I am willing to do. And so I try not to lie to them, but I also am not going to tell them the truth. I'm not going to tell them I'm out and out atheist. I'm not going to tell them I'm a host on the AXP. I'm not going to tell them those things. They can find out if they really want to. Fortunately, they're not on social media. So I'm not exactly hiding either. But for me, it is, do I want to cause them any more emotional distress than I need to? And yes, I'm willing to tell them that lie. I'm willing to go to church with them. I'm willing to do all those things with them because it doesn't cost me anything to make them feel good and to keep them from worrying excessively about me. So that is kind of my reasoning behind it. To me, there's no ethical question in that, because I'm not gaining or losing anything and I'm helping them. Now, if I thought I could actually have a conversation with them that wouldn't destroy them, I probably would. But I don't know of a way to do it. So that's kind of my answer for it. I don't know, Matt, do you want to?
I had a struggle with this when my grandmother was dying, and I'd been asked similar things before, and I said, part of me would like to think that I would, if she was on her deathbed and was asking me, that I would just tell her the comforting lie. And I decided that I couldn't, but what I came up with was, for me in my situation, better. And that is that while we didn't talk about it right before she died, if she had asked, my plan was to let her know that I love her, I'm going to miss her, and as far as I can tell, death is the end, but that I genuinely hope, if there's something more, that I can spend eternity together with her. And all of that is true. I don't think it's going to happen, but all of that is true. That would I like to spend forever playing cards with my grandmother? Yes. And if that's not enough for somebody, if that's not enough, then I'm not the one doing damage to them. Their religious beliefs that prevent them from having that kind of relationship with me, that's what's doing the harm. And so I don't view myself as the problem of that harm, but I'm also I'm not remotely objecting to what Jim has suggested either. We're talking about, if death is the end, well, I don't need to somebody to go out, and take away their religious belief or convince them or lie to them or anything else. I just want to focus on the human relationship that we have. You're the only one that can decide what you're okay with. And I would say that what Jim's talking about with the comforting lie is a moral good. And what I'm talking about with finding another way to let that person know that you love them and care and wish that things would be that way is also a moral good. There are many right answers to this, and it's going to change depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
I hope things
Good luck.
get better. I hope you deal with this and that you and your dad find whatever piece is best for you guys.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. Okay. Now that we're all crying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just found out yesterday that my mom's being tested for corona, that they found cases in their retirement home.
My sister-in-law is in the hospital. She had a high fever for 5 days. It got up to 104. And it turns out that they've ruled out corona. They're thinking it's some sort of tick-borne illness, but not Lyme disease, maybe Rocky Mountain spotted fever. But I got a note today that her color is better. Her fever has dropped a little bit, and they're treating it. So I'm encouraged that I will get to see my sister-in-law again.
Right.
And that, things will be okay. Hail science.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interpersonal stuff, it's difficult. And, well, there was one thing I was going to comment on, but I'm not going to, because it'll just stir up crap. So let's go on to another call.
All right. Study of comets disproves evolution.
I picked somebody else first, but
that's okay.
Angel in North Carolina moved in with some atheists and has questions about atheism. And you're on live, Angel, with me and Jim. I take it, are you just too afraid to ask the people you're living with?
No, I'm not afraid to ask them about anything. I mean, they're very open about their atheism. It's just, I grew up in a very, very Christian family, and making the move to live with two atheists has been very confusing and very challenging.
Yeah. How so? How can we help? Is there a question we can answer or some advice we can give? Because I've lived with atheists. I live with one atheist right now. That's me. But I don't have that many questions about me. But go ahead.
Okay, well, my only thing is, like I said, I grew up in a very Christian family, and I've always been told it's better to believe in a God and there not be one than not believe in one and there be one, and that's always something that has always put fear in me. And living with them, it's like they're not worried about that, and they make me question my faith a lot, and I wouldn't know how to come out to my parents and tell them that I'd possibly want to make the transition from being a Christian to an atheist.
Yeah. I've hit this so many times, and I actually have a video on my channel, which somebody can link to you, but I'm going to let Jim take the deconstruction of Pascal's wager today, because I love listening to Jim.
So yeah, so the argument that they're making, that it's better to believe than not, is what we call Pascal's wager. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay. So and basically what they're saying is that, you know, what is the what is the best thing to do, and if you believe in God and he doesn't exist, what exactly have you lost? And that really isn't I mean, you could say that about a lot of different things, but what you're losing with that particular argument, shoot, I'm struggling here, because I have completely lost my mind, is that you don't know what the odds are, and
Here, let me jump back in, because
I'm sorry, Matt.
I had a brain fart earlier, and you had to rescue me, so we can flip this around. Here's the thing: even if it were correct that it's probably better for you to believe and be wrong, what if you're wrong, but there's actually a different God, like the God that you believe in?
Sorry, what?
So, like, I'm assuming you're a Christian of some sort, and you're basically saying, hey, it's better for me to believe, and if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, nothing's going to happen. But what if the way in which you're wrong is that the Hindus were right, or the Scientologists were right, or the Jews were right, or the Muslims were right, or the Jains were right?
That's exactly how my boyfriend and his roommate, that's how they told me about it. They were like, what if you're not believing in the right God and somebody else is right?
Or what if you actually believed in the right God, but you got it a little wrong? Like you're Catholic instead of Protestant, or you're Baptist instead of Methodist, or you're instead of Lutheran, or you're Episcopalian, or whatever else. So Pascal's wager is this thing that says that basically pits one version of God versus absolutely no God. So it misrepresents the odds to begin with. For me personally, I would rather believe something when I have good evidence. And so if in fact there is a God, and that God has failed to provide enough evidence for me to say, yep, that's the right one, as opposed to the hundreds of others, then the best and the only intellectually honest thing I can do is to reserve judgment and not believe in any of them. Because what if the test is truly how gullible you are and how afraid you are? And will you believe something just because somebody claims, hey, you're going to be punished if you get this wrong? What if the test is that? What if there's no test?
I also believe that could be true too. One of the main reasons I've chosen to believe in Christianity, even not living with my parents and getting away from them, was that it's a lot to do with, like, it's a comfort thing for me. Like, it's nice to feel like it's nice for me to believe in something instead of not believing in anything, you know. And I could be wrong about what I believe in. It really is just a comfort thing, and that's just how I grew up and what I was raised around. So that's what I know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, Pascal's wager comes up a lot, and the other thing is they pretend that you risk nothing, but that's not true, is it? I mean, if you're a Christian, there's certain things that come with that. There's certain things that you're not going to be allowed to do or shouldn't do. There are things that you're going to be required to do. So that means every minute that you've spent in prayer, every penny that you've donated to a church, all of that has been a waste of the one and only life that you know you're going to get. Every penny that you donated to a religious organization, instead of spending it doing good or making your life better, turns out to have been a waste. And it's not a zero cost thing. What you're sacrificing is the opportunity to find the truth and the opportunity to live your life in accordance with the evidence and your best intentions. And if it turns out, let's imagine that you and I we both lived good lives. We were generally kind to people. We supported charities on occasion. You know, we didn't do anything horrific. We just normal life. And some God came along and said, I'm sorry, I know you lived a normal life, but you forgot that you were only supposed to kneel on from sundown Friday to noon on Saturday. I'm sorry that you didn't get that message. It was in my holy book, which was lost a long time ago, but now I'm going to punish you.
That is true. That's another hard thing to accept. Like you can be a good person and not be a Christian, but if you don't, according to other Christians, if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't worship Jesus Christ, that you'll be punished for that. And that's something I strongly disagree with.
But it's what the Bible says. The Bible basically says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. You're all damned. You're all sinners. And the only way to heaven is through Jesus. Now, does that mean that the 7-year-old kid who gets hit by a bus crossing the street and hadn't accepted Jesus into his heart because his parents maybe didn't take him to church and he had is he deserve hell? How about the serial killer who accepts Jesus at the last minute in heaven and gets to at the last minute in jail and gets to heaven on a loophole? Does anything about that system seem reasonable or rational or just?
It really doesn't. It's very unfair to think about, and that's hard to accept. That really is hard to accept, believing that if you just choose to believe in God, even last second, you're a horrible person, that if you do believe in him and you follow his rules and everything, that you'll go to heaven. But if you're a good person doing your own thing, not believing in God, that you'll be punished for that in the end,
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's very confusing.
A friend of mine used to point out that if Christianity is correct, Anne Frank is burning in hell because she was a Jew and not a Christian, and Adolf Hitler is in heaven because he was at least a Catholic, some variety of Christian. Hitler's views on God are bizarre, but I only mention it because there's some Christians who like to say, "Oh, Hitler was an atheist." Well, no. Hitler was a supernaturalist who was into all kinds of occult things, and specifically killed the Jews because they killed his savior. So I don't know too many atheists that could do that, but
we also tend to use the truth for predictive abilities to predict what's going to happen and what we would expect to happen. So when it comes to the Bible, the reason that people are sinners is because they don't believe in God, and the only way to fix that is to have them believe in God. But when we look at crime, when we look at theft and violent crimes and things like that, what we find is that really what causes those things, people to steal and murder and do all those things, is in large part their socioeconomic status, especially their economic status. The Scandinavian countries are debating on how many of their prisons they should close because they've been focusing on on all these non-biblical things. But if you're only going to accept the Bible as true, then you cannot then we end up right where we've been, with no improvement in society, because it's which Christian God do you believe in, and which parts of the Bible do you accept as true? All those things just become not possible because God makes you evil. Well, no, that's not necessarily the case. Genetics plays a part, but also if you can't feed your family, you got to feed your family. You very well may turn to stealing as the only way to feed your family. It's not ethical, it's not right, but it's definitely there. And the biblical solution to stealing is to either return 5 times, and the verse that I'm thinking of is 5 cows, or sell the person into slavery. Neither of those solves the problem of why did the person steal to begin with? Because they had a what do they call it? A misguided heart or whatever it is. Reprobate heart.
Mind.
Yeah.
Hey, Angel, I just want to cover this real quick because we're running short on time, and I want to try to get to a couple other callers. By all means, first of all, feel free to reach out. Also, you may want to look into the Discord. I know there are friendly people in the Discord who would be happy to have conversation with you about this. And I want to salute you for not only being willing to be roommates with atheists, but to have a conversation and think about it rather than freaking out and assuming that we're all baby killing monsters bent on destroying God's country. And yeah, you're going to have a lot of questions, and none of this is going to get solved in a day. But I would also recommend that you look into recoveringfromreligion.org. that is not just a site for atheists. It's for anybody who has questions or is questioning. There's a lot of resources there, and that way you can talk to somebody. Like, for example, I am occasionally known for being zealous in my defense of the truth and my desire to call out batshittery and bullshittery.
Yeah.
And there are other people who might be a little more comforting to talk to than me on occasion, and I recognize that. So I want to point you to those resources.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for the call, Angel.
Thanks.
Whoops.
Thank you. Bye.
Just bumped the crap out of my microphone after all that work to make sure it didn't bounce on the table. I bounced it on it. Sorry, Vern.
Zealous?
So here's the thing. There are people are going to have different views. Am I going to get frustrated by interlocutors that aren't arguing honestly? Yes. But all right, let's see what we're going. This is the one you wanted to do. Justin in Minnesota is saying the study of comets disproves evolution. So welcome, Justin. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Could we start with some definitions?
Okay.
Like, what's your definition of evolution is?
Yeah. Well, evolution is like, types changing into other types over billions and billions of years. And what I'm going after is the billions and billions of years. The comets prove a young universe. And so that's the premise. That's the angle I'm coming from.
Okay, so the first problem that I have is your definition of evolution. And that is that it's the change in alleles over time.
Years?
Yeah, it's a change in alleles over time. That is the definition. So evolution does not prove that there is an old Earth, but it definitely is one straw in the basket, because it does take time to do that. So and then evolution gets started with abiogenesis. So yeah, I'm not sure that this is going to go too far, but go ahead.
All right, so I've got an article here on the origin of comets by Dr. Walt Brown. So I wanted to give you my source because I didn't the last time I called in.
Is it specifically talking about short period comets?
Short period comets and small comets, yes.
Yeah, are those the only things that we can use to date the universe?
To date the universe, it's not the only thing, but it's evidence. So I'd like to know why you would rule it out.
I didn't rule it out. Do I think that some comets may be young? I don't have any way to suggest that it's otherwise.
Okay, yeah. The short period comet's lifespan is 12,000 years, and they still exist, so we haven't hit the 12,000 year mark.
No.
So are you assuming that all comets start at the beginning of the universe?
Hey, hang on a second.
Okay.
I'm a short period human. My lifespan is 70 years. I'm only 51. Does that mean that that the universe hasn't existed for 70 years yet?
So you'd have to explain your supply. Like we can obviously your parents had you.
No, I asked a question. I asked a question. Does the fact that I'm 51 mean that the universe hasn't been around for 70 years?
No, because we can solve the supply problem. You're not the only source of our supply.
But the fact that you may not know what the supply chain is for comets doesn't mean there isn't one, does it? Does your not inability to know something mean that it doesn't exist?
So in this case, you would have to choose ignorance over the facts.
No, you would have to choose I don't know because there isn't evidence for it.
Right. Yeah. Ignorance is not knowing something. I don't use that as a derogatory term. I'm sticking with it.
I wasn't suggesting it was derogatory. You said that you chose ignorance over facts. That's not true. You chose ignorance. You didn't even choose. We are ignorant of what the explanation for X is. That isn't choosing ignorance over the facts. That is acknowledging ignorance in the absence of sufficient evidence.
But wouldn't that classify as a false dichotomy to say that a comet with a 12,000 year lifespan equals something happening that we don't know about, that we have no evidence for? How can you equate those two things?
I don't understand your question.
So what you're equating is that these comets have a 12,000 year lifespan and they still exist. So to believe in billions and billions of years you're saying that they must have come from somewhere after the Big Bang, after initial creation, but we don't know what that is. It's something we have no evidence for.
No. Just like the fact that that's an inference, just like the planet. Like right now, the current suspicion is that the Earth and other planets form from an accretion disk of a sun. Okay, that is the current best model. But the fact that didn't happen for a long period of time, and the fact that some planets are younger than others, and the fact that we don't have an explanation for it, doesn't mean that we get to say, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and go with the Earth is young, when all of the other available evidence points to the Earth being old. So you have all this evidence about expansion and distance and time, and a number of different ways to date the universe. And you're pointing to one thing and saying, because we don't have an explanation for this, therefore we are reasonable in concluding that the Earth is young. So you're now picking not just ignorance, you're picking the wrong answer in the face of evidence, or you're picking an answer in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Right.
And
that's where the small comments come in.
And you've decided to call a show with no astronomers, no physicists, nothing at all to present your particular model. Why aren't you out winning a Nobel Prize, sir?
Well, I gave you my source. Initially, it was Dr. Walt Brown, and then he lists his source here. It's Harold Levi.
So let me ask this question. Let me ask this question before we get into his source model. Yeah. So is all comets only 12,000 years old, or only some comets are 12,000 years old and some are older?
No. The comets are not 12,000 years old. Their lifespan is 12,000 years. So
their
lifespan is 12,000 years, and they're still alive. They're not really alive, but they still exist. We have not reached year number 12,000. And
for the comets that exist, that would be correct. How do you prove that comets have not stopped existing yesterday? How do you know a comet didn't stop existing yesterday?
Small comets.
I didn't qualify it. The question I asked was, how do you know a comet didn't stop existing yesterday?
Because they strike the Earth once every 3 seconds. The small comets do.
So what? I didn't ask that question. I asked, how do you know a comet didn't stop existing yesterday?
Because they're still striking the Earth today every 3 seconds.
Okay,
and I'm talking about a specific. I'm trying to get to
when they strike the Earth, they cease to exist, right? So, in fact,
I couldn't hear you over.
When they strike the Earth, they cease to exist, which means they do, in fact, cease to exist every day.
Yes. Now, what creates comets? Where do they come from?
They come from the beginning.
No.
Oh, no.
Kuiper belt.
Yeah.
From the beginning, there is no matter that comes from the beginning.
Yeah, they come from the Kuiper belt, and they can also come from our own asteroid belt, much closer in. They can come from anything that collides in any piece of rock that comes into orbit. The Kuiper belt's the closest one. That's where most of them exist, and most of them are believed to have started and been created from the accretion disk that started the sun and our solar system. That's where they come from.
Yeah, this is why I asked at the beginning. If you were specifically talking about short period comets, because short period comets aren't the only type of comet.
Right.
That would be like you doing an assessment of young people and suggesting that older people don't exist.
Well, that's why I did a twofold argument.
But do you agree that the Kuiper belt
and small comets working together? Go ahead.
Right. Do you agree that the Kuiper belt exists? And I may be pronouncing that incorrectly.
Kuiper belt.
Kuiper belt. Sorry, the Kuiper belt exists.
Can somebody get me Neil deGrasse Tyson real quick?
Yeah. Do you agree that the Kuiper belt?
I do, because that is actually the source that. Well, the work is from the Kuiper belt to Jupiter family comets, and that is the work that states that the physical lifetime is 12,000 years.
Of short period.
So the guys that have the degree, I don't have.
There are also long period. There are also long period. So there are also long period comets.
Yeah, there's also things that are definitely indisputably dated to being older than 12,000 years, like the Earth and the Sun and other things. Right?
Right. Here's the difference: long period, short period.
No, you disagree with me that there are things that are older than that.
They're retrograde, though, in their orbit. Small, short period comets are prograde.
You agreed with me that the Earth and the Sun and everything were significantly older than 12,000 years.
We're talking about relation. And if I did that, it would have been because I didn't clearly hear two different people talking at the same time.
Are there comets in the Kuiper Belt that are older than 12,000 years?
No, sir. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. There are long period comets.
Is the Earth
older than 12,000 years?
Is the age of the Earth closer to 4.5 billion years than it is to 12,000 years?
No, sir.
Okay, then you need to go. You need to. Okay, I don't give a shit if you believe the Bible literally. I care about evidence literally. You might as well come to me and say, "Hey, this holy book says this," but I'm talking about what the science says and the dating of the Earth by the overwhelming majority of scientists, experts, and the methods, which it baffles me to be sitting here talking to somebody who thinks that they've found an exception that undermines all of science. Why aren't you off getting a Nobel Prize for proving that the Earth is young when all of the experts in the field suggest that the Earth is closer to 4.5 billion years old?
I called him with two examples, and their procedures or methods of dating the Earth are circular.
No, they're not.
Paleontology and geology.
No, sir. You forgot about radiometric decay and other things. It's not circular. What it is there's about 25 different dating methods, and they overlap at different things, and each one of them shows the accuracy of the other ones. You should a quick Google search on the reliability of radiometric dating would solve this for you. You have been fed a line of bull from a bunch of young Earth apologists who don't understand the science and have managed to convince you that you're on strong footing, and you're not. And since neither Jim nor I are scientists, I think it speaks volumes that you decided to call us with your armchair comet proof, which has been addressed and debunked over and over. You can go to the Index to Creationist Claims and find it. You can search Wikipedia and find it. You can what are the responses to Answers in Genesis bullshit and find it. You can find Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this. You can find experts in a number of different fields, both with regard to comets, planets, stars, the Oort cloud. You are so far away from science that before I will talk to you anymore, you'll need to submit a peer-reviewed paper on your particular claim.
Yeah. And honestly, I just Googled the Kuiper Belt, and the 10 things to know about the Kuiper Belt from the NASA site basically says you're not right. So
difficult. I mean, it's difficult. I get it, but
yeah, so there's just so many different ways that you're wrong. It's not even funny.
So I'm going to try and get to these really quickly before the show's over. We got Mark in Rhode Island. You're on with Jim and Matt, and you say that you can be justified in believing that a miracle is the explanation for an event. So let us have it.
Sure. So I guess at first I want to start off by asking a question to you. Do you think one can ever be justified in attributing a miracle as the explanation of an event?
Define miracle: supernatural in origin, or just unusual, or what?
I would say supernatural in origin. So something.
Sure, it's easy, Mark. Until somebody demonstrates that the supernatural exists and can, in fact, interact with the natural world, you are not justified in appealing to that as a potential explanation.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So science is the project of, developing hypotheses and testing them to investigate how. Also, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little wavery. I'm a little nervous. To investigate how the world works. So. But it seems to me that if something beyond the natural world that could stand in causal relation to an event in the world exists, so obviously you don't believe it does. We're just completely hypothetically, right?
I'm going to keep going.
If that something existed, then it would not be explicable through normal science, because if it was, then the event would just be natural and not supernatural. So
No.
it seems like people. Oh, okay. So I guess where am I wrong?
So if there's something supernatural, that's where you went wrong, because you are inferring something about something that you have no evidence for. You don't know what is supernatural. You don't know what its limits are.
No.
No, stop. Let me finish my sentence. To say X is supernatural, you can't tell me anything about it. And yet you're trying to, by saying that if X is supernatural, then there can't be a natural explanation for it. But there's no way to demonstrate that there cannot be a natural explanation. The only thing we can ever do is show that there's not currently a natural explanation. So you're hiding a big argument from ignorance fallacy in this model. My position is really simple. Before we get to use the supernatural as a potential candidate explanation for an observation, we must first demonstrate that the supernatural exists and could be a potential explanation for it. Why you don't get to suggest a candidate explanation without demonstrating how and why it is a candidate. And you can't do that. You can't even tell me that if something is supernatural, then there's not a plausible natural explanation for it, because it could be both.
No, I agree that there could be both plausible, natural and supernatural explanations, but I feel like I may have misstated something. So it sounds like when a lot of people are describing what they would expect to see as evidence for a supernatural thing, and again, for the sake of this, we can all be naturalists. This is all just a hypothetical thought experiment. I'm not attributing any supernatural cause to any particular event. For the sake of this phone call, we can all be naturalists for the thought experiment. But it seems like if hypothetically it could, and again, for the sake of the conversation, we can say it can't.
Can we skip all the qualifiers, because we are over time and there's still 2 callers waiting? So if we can just get to it and not keep putting in the qualifiers.
Okay, fair. It seems like you're expecting the amount of evidence you would expect for investigating a natural claim for a supernatural claim. Whereas if it could, which again we don't know if it could, if it could, it seems like it would appear as a gap in our knowledge as opposed to something we were test. So
that is an ad hoc, unsupported assertion. First, I'm not expecting any more evidence or whatever else. I just want somebody to demonstrate. It's going to take whatever evidence that it takes to demonstrate it. The fact that nobody's ever demonstrated anything supernatural, that nobody's ever made a connection to anything supernatural, is, I think, fairly telling. However, that's where we're stuck. And until that changes, you don't get to peel. It's like you're trying to claim that I have what appears to be a 6-sided die. And so when we calculate the possibility of me rolling a 6, it's 1 in 6. But it's almost like you're saying, hang on a minute, what if there's a 7th side to that die and you can't see it? That's the type of thing that you're actually doing. And the time for me to believe there's a 7th side on that die is when you demonstrate it. And I don't get to appeal to the 7th side as an explanation until it's demonstrated as a candidate explanation. The supernatural is not a candidate explanation currently. It's not a problem. That's not a problem with science. That's not a problem with me. That's not a problem with epistemology. That is a problem with the supernatural. As soon as somebody demonstrates that the supernatural can and should be considered a candidate explanation, I will accept it as one, and not 1 minute earlier.
Okay, so let me pose this example. Suppose there's a supernatural being that caused the random formation of rain clouds in the sky when that otherwise would not have happened. Then, so when if say scientists were going to investigate that event, we could investigate what happened. So obviously we can map, for example,
you can come up with 1,000 examples that are going to keep us from identifying your hypothetical, but all I want is one example that will actually identify your hypothetical.
No,
why are we wasting time on all the ways we can't prove the supernatural? Fucking prove it.
No. But the point I'm trying to get at, and I'm likely phrasing it quite poorly, is that what you are considering proof, for the nature of a supernatural event,
how do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is?
Exactly. Answer Jim's.
How do you know what the nature of supernatural is? How do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is? How do you know what that nature is if nobody's ever investigated or we can't investigate it?
Okay, so I agree with you. I'm not even at that. I'm not even.
That's not an answer to the question. That's not an answer. Agreeing with me is not answering the question.
Okay. Hey, could you restate it one more time? I'm sorry.
How do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is?
What is the nature of the supernatural? How did you discern that?
No. So my point is that
that's not an answer to the question.
Goodbye. I'm not wasting the after show time on this. Luke in Georgia wants to tell us that some people haven't received the Holy Ghost, but anybody can. So, Luke, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds or a minute here or whatever to tell us how we can receive the Holy Spirit.
Matt, how are you today?
Exhausted and eager to know how I can receive the Holy Spirit.
Okay. Well, I was an atheist too, but
so
let me just say, receiving the Holy Spirit and the Holy Ghost takes dying unto yourself to take up a cross and follow Christ.
Yeah,
not according to the Catholic Church.
Well,
the Catholic Church, all they got to do is go and prove it.
Right, so they're wrong, and
prove it.
There are many Christians that are wrong because
no. You just made a claim. I want you to prove the Catholic Church is wrong without using the Bible.
I'd just like you to get to the point, since we're past showtime, of how can I get the Holy Spirit, and how do you know this?
Right, but he's also asking me to prove other things, so it's difficult to do both at the same time.
Go ahead and deal with Matt's. Go ahead and deal with Matt's questions,
please, because we're running out of time.
So, how to receive the Holy Ghost? Is to die unto yourself.
What the fuck? What the fuck does die unto yourself mean? Because that is sophistry.
Well, spiritually, our hearts are tied to many things in this world. We are connected to many things and many people, lusts, things that we want, things that we crave. Once we disconnect from that and we connect with God, then we can receive the power of the Holy Spirit.
I have no idea how to disconnect. I have no idea how to disconnect from that, or how to connect with God, or why I should try.
Often, for many people, no matter what God they're seeking, it takes deep meditation, disconnecting from the cares of this world.
Oh, what a load of shit!
Yeah.
What an absolute load of shit. All right, so for the final call today, Michael in San Diego, you are on with Jim and Matt in past time, and I apologize. Was there a question?
Yes, Jim and Matt, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to question your skepticism and ask you just a brief question, why you don't believe in the God of Spinoza like Einstein.
The God of Spinoza is a metaphorical God, not an actual God.
Well, have you read Spinoza's treatise on? Yes. Yeah? And that's what you came up with, that it was just a metaphor?
That not that there's an actual thinking agent person that is represented by Spinoza's God. And to whatever extent Spinoza might have believed in an anthropomorphic agent like God, I don't, because there isn't sufficient evidence for it.
I understand your position. I've heard a lot of your debates.
Why did you call to ask me about it?
But my point is that he actually did believe, in a form of pantheism, and I'm not here to argue for any.
Why?
The semantic term God, I think, is part of the problem. Go ahead.
Stop, Michael. Why do I give a fuck what Spinoza or anybody else believed?
Well, I know you like to be a free thinker and just base it on your own form of Humean skepticism.
Yes, but I also understand logical fallacies, and Spinoza has no recognizable expertise on a God. So Spinoza's opinion on a God isn't argument or evidence for a God. The time to believe that there's a God is when there's been an argument supported by evidence presented by it. I don't care what Spinoza had to say, because I'm not going to buy into fallacious lines of reasoning, not just because I want to be on my own. So when I ask you why I should give a fuck what Spinoza believes, you didn't answer the question. Okay. Is there a good reason for me to care about God?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that question. It's not just Spinoza, it would be Einstein. It was Einstein who also believed, in that concept of God. That Spinoza,
I guess what Einstein believed about God either, until you tell me why I should. That's the question I've asked. Why is it? Why is it? Callers to the show. That's the whole point. Shut the fuck up. Why is it callers to the show refuse to answer the question I've asked and go off to answer some other question? Why should I?
Just ask me why you don't want to. You're just asking me why you shouldn't appeal to authority.
I'm asking you, why should I care what Einstein or Spinoza believed about a God?
Well, I agree with that. That we shouldn't appeal to authority. I think we should look to their ideas and their conception of reality based on their knowledge, and not just them.
Is Einstein an authority on God?
Okay, then why did you call in to talk about Spinoza and Einstein? Do you have evidence for a God?
It's really. I would say, yeah. I would say I have a Bayesian probability based on my knowledge of the natural.
How did you compute the probability?
I already hung up, Jim. The second you said the word Bayesian.
Yeah. Well,
this is a bullshit call. My apologies to anybody who's watching this for the first time who thinks that I just was like loud and rude to some serious seeker. No, that's a bullshit call. And I apologize that we don't have time to go into all the detail about why it's a bullshit call. But after the show, after we've been on this long, I really only want to talk to people who are going to honestly have a conversation and not come in and say, hey, Matt, why don't you believe in Spinoza's God? After all, Einstein believed in it. Do you think you're smarter than Einstein? Yeah, motherfucker. On the subject of a God, I do. There.
Yeah. Because Einstein is an expert on physics, not whether or not there's a God.
Exactly. But also, I'm not convinced that Einstein did that. He gets all of these. People reference these all the time. And at the end of the day, that's why I asked the question. It doesn't matter what I think about God. It doesn't matter what you think about God. The only thing that matters is the evidence and the argument. That's it. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I apologize. I'm not going to end up hanging out in the Discord afterwards, but I think Jim might.
I'm going to. Yeah. Give me time to get over there and take a bio break.
We went about 17 minutes over. For all the people who were waiting for me to get angry and curse and yell, congratulations. I didn't get angry, but I did curse and yell. You don't understand the difference between frustration at not being able to have. Why is it when I ask a question, people are so reluctant to answer it? I think it's because somewhere deep down, they know that answering that question honestly is going to expose a problem with their thinking. Yeah. And I am currently working on better ways to do that across the board in personal relationships and on the show. But I dare anybody do this for 15 years, sit here for an hour and 40 minutes and have somebody come at you with, well, Einstein believed in Spinoza's God. If you're not willing to hang up over that.
Or Bayesian probability. It's like, how did you calculate? Given we only have one universe.
In this one universe, which the previous caller thinks is about 12,000 years old, but no other universe. It's fun but for anybody who's actually worried, I'm fine and I'm gonna be fine. I appreciate everybody who tuned into the show today, including the people that I banned. If you didn't get banned, you can click the like button there, and that actually helps us out quite a bit. If you did get banned or you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, and that actually helps us out as well. And one last call, if you have the ability to, there's the donation link at the top. 100% goes to the atheist community of Austin to keep the shows going and do all the stuff we like to do. Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt,
for keeping me level and doing a great show. And let's put the crew cam up to show all the people once again who are doing the
research. These are the people you need to show some love to because they don't get enough of it.
And I'm hearing somebody's fan. Anyway, we'll see you all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care of yourself. Wear a mask. Protect yourself. Pay attention to what the health advisors are saying so that maybe one of these days I don't have to wake up to yet another day, another record day of corona in Florida, Texas, and other states. Take care.
Mostly red. All right. Take it easy.
We are sorry, but the show has ended. Goodbye.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?